Welcome back to another build video. I have here a Huffy Shockwave or whatever. To be honest, I am very indifferent to this bike, and the reason why is it was only here for parts. I used the stem and handlebars on it to build my nephew's Benny Hill clunker bike, which was the last build video I posted. And I was on the fence about what to do with this thing. Scrap it or save it. And I've decided that I'm going to save it. Apart from needing a new seat, I happen to have this stem that was from a girl's BMX. It used to be pink, but I repainted it matte black and put it on my shelf a while back. And then I have these bars, which are kind of almost similar color. These were off of one of my nephew's bikes from years ago. Pretty rusty, and they're smaller than the ones that were on it, but this is basically a kid bike, so it's not going to need big bars, but I'm just going to throw this thing back together, replace the seat, replace the steering column, do a little bit of this and that, and I have some used tires that'll go right on it, and then it'll go right to the thrift shop for some kid who might get it for 20 bucks or so. In order to get it out of the way, the first thing I'm going to do is repaint these handlebars. I am removing the pegs from the front axle of the bike, mainly because I want to save these for something else in the future that I might build. But it's nice to get these free when you can. It took them some hours to dry in front of my heater, but we've got a set of repainted handlebars. It might still be a little hot. Now we're just going to remount these using this. It's nearly identical to the part that originally came off this bike, only this is, I don't remember the brand of this bike came off of, but it certainly wasn't Huffy. Now, don't get all huffy on me that I'm not using original parts. Like, you should be picky in this situation. Of course, while trying to start putting these handles back together, I noticed this big old spot where the paint is just coming off, and I'll have to deal with that somehow. I guess it makes it easier to tell that this didn't come off of a Huffy, because it's not going into a Huffy as easily as it's supposed to. It's only people like me who save bikes like this. Now I'm gonna continue taking this paint bubble off and then seeing what I can do about it. Since matte black is still the best I have, I'm not gonna bother trying to color match anything. I'm just going to cover this hole up, and then I'm going to take this off the stand, and I'm going to essentially do this whole midsection, which is chipping pretty badly, and that'll be fine as that. The next thing I'm going to do is take these pedals off because, well, to be frank, even though they actually look good, they are, you see that? These are the worst. Now what I have to go on it, these are some much older pedals that are also off of a Huffy, like from the 90s. I remember riding bikes with these exact pedals on them as a kid. They always lasted a long time. They're basically rocks. And since I already had them on hand, I'm just going to put them on. For ancient Huffy pedals that have been sitting out in the weather for who knows how long, That's damn good. I'm not leaving these terrible tires on, and they're not street tires, they're far from it. They're just such a crappy compound that they wore out way too quickly. First things first is this rear wheel, which is out of sorts. I'm gonna do my best to true it. I only need to do it just enough. It's already a little better. I don't need to be super anal about this. In fact, I think that's good enough. It's not perfect, never going to be perfect, but definitely way straighter. I have these generic BMX tires. I don't know if they came off the same bike or whatever, but I've pulled these from the bike shop's free tire pile. Yeah, the WD-40 I sprayed last night is still working fine here. That was unnecessarily tight for a bike this size. I doubt that these wheels have ever been off. In a way, that kind of shows the reliance of the brand. Huffys are cheap, but they can be reliable cheap. I'm not really one of the people who swears by them, but I don't deny they're alright either. And that's the wheel off. Now we just remove the tire and swap it out. Hi, kitty. Oh, you're so adorable, Charlotte. It's just sort of a cat that lived around here that I was always feeding and I more or less took in. She mostly lives out of my workshop, which I need to add a cat door to sometime. These tires, they're slimmer than the original ones. Sometimes tires go on easy. Sometimes they don't. And that's a good looking wheel. Now we have to do the front wheel. There we go. Front wheel off. Now I just need to... Alright. And there's the new front tire. Since these tires are so old, I can actually see the very, very minuscule, tiny little dry cracks forming in the sidewalls. But they'll last plenty long enough for whatever little kid is going to get this bike, because they're going to ride it like all of 1 or 2 years before their parents get them something else. It's a thrift shop bike. It's going to be made to keep going until they can afford to get their kids something better. Now it's starting to take shape again. For handle grips, I have these old things that were free because they were used at the bike shop. But these will work just fine. That has to be like one of the most painless grip installs ever. The seat is in absolutely dire condition. It's very bad. But I have a replacement. I have this seat that was covered in Flex Seal that I had been intending to put on a road bike, but never did. And it's been sitting on a shelf for like the last 2 years. But I figure, size-wise, it's good enough for a kid. I'll just take the bracket off of this one. For a seat that was probably going to get thrown out eventually otherwise, I'd say that this is a good place for it to go. And back on the bike it goes. Okay. That mostly marks this as complete. Let me see if I can put a reflector on the front of this. Yeah, that looks good. That'll help keep a kid safe. Build-wise, it's functionally complete. But I am going to finish dealing with this paint. Make sure it doesn't rust. Now we've just got to deal with this paint. We'll just matte black this central area where the paint damage is at its worst. It's not elegant, but it'll ensure that this bicycle lasts. Either way, I'd say this marks a successful build. Soon I will clean it up, and then I will drop it off at the thrift store over the course of next week, and it'll probably just pop out on their sales floor soon enough. Every time I fix up a bike, I can't help but come back in and look at it once in a while before it's no longer here. Each one kind of becomes like my children. I get attached, you know? This one, I didn't have to save it. I mean, but I did. And I only did so because I had all the parts right on hand. This matte black paint that I added to the frame, where the worst parts were at, it actually works. It's covering up all the bad rust spots. And the dullness actually kind of blends in well. I did my best to make it look semi-nice with the way the paint mixes in various areas. And even this little thing down here, I repainted too. The seat does look a little big on it, but that's to be expected since it was designed for a road bike. For this Huffy Shockwave, I am very hopeful that some kid will enjoy this bike. I would give it away for free if I could, but even when I put free bikes up online, people rarely come out here to get them, if ever. So the best thing I can do is donate it. If bikes could talk, would they thank you for going this far to fix them up? I would like to think they would, especially ones like this one.